So with respect to why we keep doing this year after year and what keeps us coming back, there's a couple things that are really important and things that we've gained over the years. The first issue, I would say, or the first thing that really is some of the upside is really the ability in the RIA to be able to contribute in a positive way for the industry. If we don't have our voices as restorers united, it's impossible for us to affect change. And so that's one of the things that I think is most important. And then secondarily, of course, there's the relationships. This is how we can elevate our businesses, how we can improve our businesses is through all the best practices that we're able to exchange, whether it be ideas, whether it be best practices. Those are the things that really help us in the industry. RIA is the restoration industry's oldest and largest trade association. Now, that doesn't really matter for a lot of people. Just because you're the oldest or just because you're the largest, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best. But RIA is really one of the singular voices that takes not only the restorers and unites them together around a common cause, but it also can amplify the restorer's voice so that we're able to have consideration in some of the issues that we face in our businesses, whether that be with pricing platforms, whether that be with third-party administrators, third-party consultants, or in the insurance claims community. These are places where restorers' voices are brought together. So I worked with my dad in the business that he founded all the way back in 1989, many years ago. And as we transitioned out of the business, it was actually in 2020, there were a lot of things that were really important in that process. And some of the things that I would encourage any restorer to consider as they think about transitioning out of their business is, first of all, in what ways is the business able to function and operate without me? There are some businesses that are so dependent on the owner's involvement in the company. And so one of the things you want to be able to do is make sure that your business has the ability to operate and function in your absence. Sometimes we as owners, we get a really big ego. The business is all about me, and we have our identities, in fact, entirely wrapped up in that business. It's important that we can actually empower our teams, help them to be successful, and that's what really can add enterprise value. So as we think about some of the next steps that RIA is taking, it's actually taking some very bold steps in carrier relations. And some of the steps that we're going to be taking are really important, and they're not only important because of the nature of how advocacy works with carriers, which is going to be very different than some of the other areas where we have successfully advanced advocacy. We've had tremendous success with pricing platforms and being able to provide a voice for restorers or with third-party consultants as well. But in this respect, we've got a much larger ecosystem that we're going to be interacting with. And so some of the initial work that we're going to be doing in this area relates to how we elevate the industry, particularly around ethical practices. So here's what we need from restorers. We need restorers to really be focusing on how they can be examples in their local communities for ethical practices. One of the challenges that we see that really has come to the forefront as we studied this issue is that there has been a breakdown fundamentally in the trust that exists between the insurance carriers and the restoration contractor. So we could complain about this. We could complain about some of the impacts that we see from this. Particularly around how it's taking longer and longer for restorers to get paid. Or we can provide thought leadership in this area. We can, in goodwill, a spirit of goodwill, we can bring them to the table to get feedback on how we as restorers can actually see, not just talk about elevating the industry, but actual concrete action with ethical practices around restoration. So why should you come in 2026? First of all, it's in Savannah, Georgia. Okay, Savannah, Georgia is one of the coolest towns anyone can go to, hidden gem of the South. Savannah is a great place to go to. So that's one reason that people should make sure that they get signed up for 2026 and at RIA's 2026 convention. In addition to that, at any show that we have, with each passing year, our content gets better and better and better. We see the caliber of speakers, the caliber of thought leadership that we see in our industry just increasing each year. So we can promise this, with each show that we have, each RIA show that we have, the content continues to get better. That's one reason. Another reason is we have such opportunities for you as restorers to be able to interact with the leading minds in the industry. More and more restorers contractors are finding that they have a place at RIA where their voice is amplified. And so when you are able to join us for that discussion, you will find relationships that will yield a lifetime of benefit. So those would just be a few of the reasons. Obviously, there's great breakout sessions, there's great keynotes, but this stuff's about relationships at its core, and you won't be disappointed in that respect.